Okay, so last week, the new Harry Potter audiobooks, the full cast editions, finally started to be released with The Philosopher's Stone. And after a week of listening to it, I finally finished it yesterday, so I thought I'd just make a short video just discussing my thoughts about it. However, what I'm going to do is actually go through the characters and put them in a tier list depending on what I thought of their performances. I just think that's a bit better than talking about the book as a whole. However, what I will say is that I massively recommend listening to this version of the story if you haven't already. I really enjoyed it. It's such a refreshing way to take in the story after just purely reading the normal books and listening to the standard audiobooks and watching the movies for so many years. And if you do choose to listen to it, then I highly recommend using earphones, as the 360 degree Atmos sound design is phenomenal and it really puts you in the scene with so many different sound effects going on around you. And one more thing before we start, I'm not going to be talking about every single character / actor who appears in this book, as there are so many. I'm mainly going to focus on the main characters, so we're looking at the trio, the professors, a couple of Harry's classmates. However, as more books get released, I might make another video like this, so potentially they will be included in the future. So let's jump into it. Okay, what I'm going to do is go through this in the order that we are introduced to the characters in the book. I just think it's better than doing it by alphabetical order or by popularity. So first, we're going to look at Cush Jumbo, who is of course the narrator, and I thought she was absolutely phenomenal, honestly. She's so good at capturing those different elements, such as the warmth and the tension as well, just as Jim Dale and Stephen Fry were in the original, and she is also incredible at the more descriptive style of J.K. Rowling's writing, so it really suited this story really well. So I am going to put her in an A, and to be honest with you, I think the only thing holding her back is purely nostalgia. I hold, personally, Stephen Fry on such a pedestal for when it comes to narrating these books, that it would be really hard for me to put anyone in S other than him, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way about Jim Dale as well. Just personally, I grew up with Stephen Fry, so I know that this is cheating a little bit, and it should only be based off this story alone, but still, I think she did phenomenally, and I think A is still a very good score for her. Okay, the next one I've just seen is Jeremy Swift, who plays Vernon Dursley, and I hate to do this so early on in the video, because honestly, I loved 99% of the characters and I love this entire story, but I'm gonna have to put Jeremy Swift down in the bottom tier, honestly. I just really didn't like his performance. I don't know what it was. I just think that he came across way too shouty and aggressive. Like, I understand that Uncle Vernon is an aggressive and angry man, but he doesn't need to shout every single line so aggressively, kind of no matter who he's talking to. And sometimes when he wasn't shouting, it was still just a little bit over the top for my liking. So yeah, I'm gonna put him in D. I hope that he kind of changes his delivery, because obviously the Dursleys are in every single story, so I really don't want to hear that constantly. And like I said, I don't like putting him so low down at the beginning of the video, because it makes it sound like I didn't enjoy it, which is not true. But yeah, this one just wasn't for me. Okay, on the other hand though, Indira Varma I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm actually going to put her up in A. I thought she was phenomenal. Like, she found that balance so well between the kind of snappy side of Aunt Petunia, also the more coddling nature when she's talking to Dudley, and also her disdain for Harry. It all blended so well, and she found such a good range when it comes to that. I knew she would be great anyway. I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan, and she is obviously in Game of Thrones, and she was phenomenal there, and I'm really glad that she did such a good job in this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more from her when it comes to the stuff in book 5, for example, when she receives the letter from Dumbledore and when she says that Harry needs to stay and all of that stuff. I think she's going to do a great job there. Okay, next up is Hugh Laurie as Dumbledore, and I told you that I did enjoy this, honestly. This is also going at an A. Once again, a phenomenal actor. Great performance in this role. I thought he captured that whimsy of Dumbledore so well. Obviously, in this book, we don't really hear him be too stern or too powerful. It's mainly just warmth and kindness and also kind of whimsy. But Hugh Laurie nailed every single one of those tones. I think the only thing that is holding him from going into S is, and this isn't his fault, I just feel like he isn't old enough. Like, you can tell when you listen to him that he's not that old. Like, Dumbledore is still incredibly old, and when Stephen Fry, for example, was narrating Dumbledore, you really got that sense that it was an old man. Even though he is powerful and strong, he's still old, and I just wish we got a little bit more of that. Like, he does literally just sound like a 50, 60-year-old man, which isn't the case really. So still incredible, but I'm going to put him in at A. But we do have our first S tier now, and that is Michelle Gomez as McGonagall. Incredible. One of my absolute favourite characters in this version of the book. She's not one of my favourite characters in the story normally, but in this version, she is incredible. She's obviously doing a Scottish accent, which is incredibly good, and also clear, which can sometimes be a little bit of an issue, and potentially that's part of the reason I'm putting her as S, because even though I love Stephen Fry and his editions, he didn't do a Scottish accent, even though she is clearly Scottish, so that was great. But also just everything about her performance from the very beginning, when she's being stern with Hagrid and Dumbledore, but also worried about leaving Harry there, and also her passion for Quidditch, but also how angry she gets when she finds Harry and Hermione and Neville and Malfoy out of bed. All of that, all of the balance, she absolutely nailed, and I love this performance. So yes, that is an S for me. Okay, and the last character who's obviously in this first chapter is Hagrid, played by Mark Addy, and this one hurts quite a lot, one of my favourite characters, but I'm gonna put him in C. Something didn't feel right about it. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think potentially he just wasn't capturing the warmth that Hagrid has. Hagrid obviously has a huge range of emotions, from anger to happiness to kind-hearted nature to fierce. However, it just kind of felt like Mark Addy was delivering the majority of lines in the same gruff voice. And again, I know I shouldn't really do this, but when you compare it to Stephen Fry's work as Hagrid, I thought that was his best character when he was doing it, and it would be so hard to stand anything up against that, and I do just feel like Mark Addy fell a bit short. Again, that really hurts as a Game of Thrones fan. He was great as Robert Baratheon, but in this, it just wasn't for me. Before we jump into the next character, who is a massive one, I just want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to like the video and hit the notification bell. We're so close to 2,000 subscribers now. I really want to hit it soon. And remember, I've got new Harry Potter HBO theories, news, and also breakdowns and my vision coming very soon. Okay, we have an absolutely massive one here. It is, of course, Frankie Treadaway, who is Harry Potter, and I would love for this to be S. I would love for it to be A, but for me, he's B. He's middle of the pack, honestly. Don't get me wrong, he is good. I think that he captures Harry's warmth and kind nature so well, but I just feel like there was a bit of nuance missing there. Like, Harry does have a lot of different emotions in this book and a lot of different personality traits. Of course, he is kind and warm, but he also has his sarcastic moments when he's talking to Snape, and he also has those more fierce moments when he says he's going to go and get the Philosopher's Stone, for example. But I just feel like these areas of the performance for him were missing a bit. I hope that it improves going into Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban, but I don't know, for me right now, it just wasn't quite there. Okay, and next is Jayden Desange as Dudley Dursley, and he was good. I think he did a very good job at the fake crying and stuff that Dudley does, especially for such a young actor, but it also wasn't necessarily standing out to me, so I will put him alongside Frankie Treadaway here in B. I just feel like we need a little bit more from him, which will come. I think obviously in this book we don't hear loads from Dudley. He will have more to do as the series progresses, but for now I think it was just solid. I'll put him in at B. Okay, next we have Sacha Dhawan as Professor Quirrell. I hope I'm saying his name right, by the way. And yeah, I thought he was really good. He captured that whole timid nature and the stuttering really, really well. And then obviously by the end of the story, when we realized it was all an act, he pulled that off perfectly as well. So I will put him in at A as well. I think the majority of the adult actors were phenomenal, as you will see in this tier list. Okay, we then have Jude Farrant, who plays Malfoy, and this one was a little bit of a tricky one because I did really like his performance at times. He's absolutely despicable and I hate him, which is perfect for what you need as Malfoy. I just feel like some of the delivery was a little bit off sometimes. He did a lot of jeering and laughing, which I know Malfoy does it sometimes, but sometimes Malfoy is just more snide and cold and just really mean with the things he says, not even trying to attempt to laugh. But here, he laughed at every single thing that he was saying and jeered every single line, which I just felt was a little bit too much sometimes. So I did enjoy his performance. I will put him in at B, though. I think there's definitely room for improvement there. Okay, we've arrived at our next member of the Golden Trio, which is, of course, Max Lester, who plays Ron. And I thought he was great, honestly. I think that he captured Ron's humour so well, but also his sincerity and his friendship. I am going to put him in at A, and I think the only thing that's holding him back from an S is I feel like he could have captured a little bit more of Ron's snark at times. Like, there were times where he is being quite cruel to, like, Hermione, for example. However, I just feel like he wasn't delivering that quite as well as he could have done. So that's the only thing that's holding him back from S. But also one thing that I will say is that his compatibility with every single character that he interacts with is phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to some more of these interactions later on in the series. So yes, an A for me. Okay, and we're just going to do a couple more of the Weasleys. I'm not going to do Molly Weasley or Ginny here because they don't have much to do in this story, and I will probably do them in the Chamber of Secrets. We have obviously got Hamish Lloyd Barnes, who played both Fred and George Weasley, and I thought he was incredible. I think he did such a good job at differentiating between the different characters, considering he plays both of them. But when you're listening to it, you can tell which one is Fred and which one is George, as they do differ ever so slightly. So I am going to put him in at A. The only thing holding him back from S, really, is that sometimes he went a little bit overboard, kind of like Jude Farrant as Draco Malfoy, with the laughing, and actually sometimes it interfered a bit with me being able to understand what they were saying. And the other Weasley that I'm going to cover is, of course, Tom Royal, who plays Percy, and I'm going to put him down at B. I do think, once again, he was good, but he just wasn't quite as snobbish as I would like. So yeah, I think he was good, but I think B is fair for him. Okay, we have our final member of the Golden Trio now, Arabella Stanton, S. She was incredible, honestly, and it makes me so excited for the HBO series, as she is obviously going to be playing Hermione in that as well. She is just so good. She honestly does just feel like an Emma Watson regen, like the way that she just delivers the lines so perfectly, and she's so clear as well. Like, you don't have any issues with enunciation. You understand everything that she's saying, and the inflections are all perfect. She is just great. The only thing that I will say is that sometimes it does feel like she is kind of just copying Emma Watson with the style and the delivery of certain lines, but I don't think that's a major issue. That's something she can work on. There were definitely still moments which were fully herself, but yeah, I think she's incredible, so S for me. Okay, next we have Stephen Mangan as Nearly Headless Nick, and I was debating on whether to include him or not because he doesn't really have much to do at all in this book, and maybe it would have been better to save it until the Chamber of Secrets, with obviously the Death Day party and everything that happens with his storyline. However, I love Stephen Mangan, so I did want to talk about him here. I thought he was good. I'm going to put him as a B, purely because we didn't hear much of him, but I do think his delivery was very good, and I'm really looking forward to listening to more of him as the series unfolds. Okay, next is Lenny James, who plays the Sorting Hat. I love Lenny James. I first saw him in Line of Duty Season 1. He was incredible in that, and he captured the Sorting Hat so perfectly. I know a lot of it will come down to the sound design, because when he was speaking, it sounded like it was a voice in your head, which obviously suits that so perfectly. But he just carried that whole snide and sly voice so perfectly well. So I am going to put him as an A, purely because we didn't hear much of him yet again. But obviously, as the series unfolds, we'll hear him do his different Sorting Hat songs, his discussion with Harry in the Chamber of Secrets. I'm looking forward to hearing more, and maybe in the future he might bump up to S. One character who will be getting an S, though, is Nigel Pilkington as Peeves. He was absolutely phenomenal, honestly. Once again, I know the sound design helps. Anytime Peeves was talking, there was a kind of echo going on, which obviously really suits the character. But the way he kind of delivered all of his lines in a sing-song voice, and whenever he sang his silly songs, he actually sang them instead of just kind of chanting them like the original narrators would have done. I thought that was just absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to hear more of him. So yes, as I said, he is going in S. Absolutely incredible. Okay, next we have Riz Ahmed as Professor Snape, and I love Riz Ahmed. I love so much of his work. He is a phenomenal actor, but I just felt like there was something missing from his Snape performance. It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. It was actually a good performance, but I feel like there was potential for this performance to be right up near the top, because he is such a good actor, but I just think it was a bit middle of the road. I'm gonna put him B. I just feel like sometimes his delivery of certain lines was a bit too much. It almost felt a bit pantomimey at times, the way he would say Potter and the way he would deliver lines to Harry. However, there were other moments where he was talking to the class as a whole, for example, where he captured Snape's cold tone so well. That's why he's not any lower than a B, but I do feel like there can be more for him to offer, so B for now. Hopefully it will get better. Okay, only 3 left, and here we've got Adil Akhtar, who plays Filch, and his performance was very good. There's not much to say. He doesn't say that much in this book, but he just captured that mean and vindictive nature of Filch really well, and the pleasure in his voice when he's taking Harry, Hermione, Neville and Malfoy to their detention, and he's talking all about punishments, was absolutely incredible. So I'm going to put him in an A as well. And next we've got Fergus Rattigan, who plays Flitwick, and this was also very good. I actually love the touch of making him Irish. I don't know why. Obviously he doesn't need to be Irish, but it seemed to really suit his character, and I also liked how he wasn't really squeaky like some of the other narrations, such as Stephen Fry, did for him. Just because he's small doesn't mean he needs to squeak like an elf. He was really good. I know, again, it was only brief. We didn't hear him much, but I do think he was good, and I'm going to also put him in A. And finally, we've got Matthew McFadden, who obviously plays Voldemort. And this one, I was really split between S and A. Honestly, I think he was phenomenal. I do think he captures Voldemort's cold and calculated delivery so well. And one thing I will say is that he sounded a little bit more human, which I think is a good thing, because he obviously did used to be Tom Riddle, and the way that he delivered lines sounded like a way that Riddle would have spoken to people when he was trying to entice them and get them on side, and I really like that. The only thing I think that I didn't like was it felt still a bit too whispery and raspy at times. I think he could have spoken more normally. That kind of felt like a Ralph Fiennes delivery, maybe kind of mimicking him at times. And I would much prefer him to just go down his own route completely. But I still really enjoyed it. However, I am going to put him in A. I don't think it was an S just yet. But again, hopefully we will see that in the future. So that is my full tier list there. As you can see, it is actually very positive, with only a couple of the performances that I didn't really like. But even then, the ones that I didn't like, I'm not saying they were terrible, they just weren't for me. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more of this going forward. Obviously, Chamber of Secrets comes out in December, and I can't wait to listen to that. And once again, I would recommend going and listening to the Philosopher's Stone version. It's so good. You're not going to regret it. Once again, remember to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and hit the notification bell if you're enjoying this content, and I'll see you next time.